Okay. So, dear students, we will have a summary of this entire topic, what we have already completed. So, the biomolecules or biological molecules. In this topic, we described about biomicromolecules and biomacromolecules. Apart from that, we have also studied about the enzymes, the properties of enzyme, the classification of enzymes, then activation energy that is there, then cofactors. So all these we have studied in this complete unit. So let us have a brush up or a summary of this entire chapter. So biological molecules, they are the chemical compounds found in living organisms. So we also call them as biomolecules. So the biomolecules can be organic and inorganic compounds. So biomolecules or biological molecules are chemical compounds which are found within the living organisms, in the living organisms. So the biomolecules include both organic and inorganic compounds. Now, whenever we are making an analysis of chemical composition in a tissue, we are able to obtain micromolecules as well as macromolecules. So when we make an analysis, how do we make the analysis of chemical composition in a tissue? For this, what we are doing is we are grinding a living tissue, which might be a vegetable or piece of liver, in trichloroacetic acid to get a thick slurry. So we use a mortar and pestle to grind a living tissue. So it can be either a plant tissue like a vegetable or a piece of liver in case of animal or so in using this trichloroacetic acid, that is Cl3 CCOOH. Okay, so to get a thick slurry, so once we have obtained this slurry, we strain this through a cheesecloth. Okay, we filter this through street a cheesecloth or cotton, and we get two fractions such as filtrate, which has passed through this cheesecloth, that is the acid soluble pool, and the retentate, which is above this cheesecloth, that is acid insoluble fraction. So there is an acid soluble pool which we obtain as filtrate, and the retentate is acid insoluble fraction. Now the filtrate, which is in the acid soluble pool, they contain biomicromolecules. So that is molecular weight of the substances which are less than 1000 Daltons. So they contain the filtrate, which is acid soluble pool. They contain the biomicromolecules. So their molecular weight is less than 1000 Dalton. So there is one more biomicromolecule which is present in the retentate itself. Because they are acid insoluble, they are found in the retentate, but even they are biomicromolecule, that is the lipids, so which have lesser than 800 Dalton molecular weight. So the retentate, which is found above the cheesecloth, so they contain, and they are acid insoluble fraction, they contain biomacromolecules. So acid soluble pool contain the biomicromolecules. The acid insoluble fraction, they contain biomacromolecules where the molecular weight is greater than 1000 Daltons. So that is how, by the analysis of a chemical composition in a tissue, so you obtain the filtrate and retentate. So the filtrate is the acid soluble pool. The retentate, which is found above the cheesecloth, we call it as the acid insoluble pool. Acid soluble pool consists of biomicromolecules, and acid insoluble pool is found in the retentate, which consists of biomacromolecules. So that is in case of analysis of chemical composition in a tissue. So analysis of inorganic compounds, we are doing it using, we weigh a living tissue. So any living tissue, we are going to weigh it, that is wet weight with moisture. And it is dried. So the dried living tissue, that is the dry weight, is done by evaporating water, and it is dried to evaporate water to obtain dry weight. So this dry weight to obtain, when it is fully burnt, to oxidize all the carbon compounds so that the organic components of it are all removed. So it is fully burned to oxidize all the carbon compounds to gaseous form. Like the carbon compounds are going to form carbon dioxide and water vapor. So it forms ash. So this ash contains inorganic elements like calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, etc. And inorganic components they have like sulfate, phosphate, sodium chloride, calcium carbonate, etc. So the living tissue is dried and then it is burned to oxidize all the carbon compounds. To remove the hydrocarbons, we are burning it so that all the carbon compounds are oxidized to gaseous form like carbon dioxide and water vapor. So it forms ash. This ash, when we are going to analyze it, so the qualitative analysis, we get inorganic elements like uh, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, etc. And we also obtain inorganic compounds like sulfate compounds, phosphate, sodium chloride, calcium carbonate. So these are all the inorganic compounds that we get when we analyze this ash. So this is how inorganic compounds are analyzed. The above analysis, that is the previous slide analysis, was more of organic compounds, and the next analysis wherein we are drying the living tissue and then burning it to remove the organic compounds, and the ash contains the inorganic compounds, inorganic elements as well as inorganic compounds. So that is how we analyze what are the organic and inorganic compounds in a living tissue. So now then we had a comparison of elements, that is non-living and living matter. So we had compared that. So for the non-living thing, we took the Earth's crust. So what are the elements in the Earth's crust and the percentage of these elements in living material. So the living material matter was here, it is the human body that we took into comparison. So when we compare it, so hydrogen, which is 0.14 percent in Earth's crust, in human body it is zero point 0.5. That is almost 4 times higher than the Earth's crust. So we find human body has 0.5 percentage of hydrogen. Okay, carbon in the Earth's crust is just 0.03, but in case of human being, it is 18.5%. So we are majorly made up of this hydrocarbons. So the living organisms are majorly made up of hydrocarbons, and the obvious results we can see here. So carbon, human body is made up of 18.5% of carbon. So the total percentage or percentage weight of human body and the Earth's crust. So you find 18.5% weight of human body is made up of carbon. So the Earth's crust, they contain 46.6 percentage weight of Earth's crust is made up of oxygen. So you find within the Earth's crust, uh, 46, nearly 50% of oxygen. So in human body, the oxygen content is very high. So nearly 65% weight of human body is made up of uh, the oxygen. Nitrogen, the Earth's crust is very little, but in atmosphere it might be 70 to 71%. But in Earth's crust, nitrogen composition, the percentage weight of nitrogen is very less. Whereas in human body, it is 3.3% of uh, weight of human body is composed of nitrogen. So sulfur is very, very less in Earth's crust. It is 0.03%. So it is 10 times more in case of human body, wherein they are 0.3 percent. Uh, in case of human body, it is 0.3%. The sodium is around 2.8% of the Earth's crust. In human body, it is very less, that is 0.2 percentage. Weight of human body consists of sodium. Calcium is 3.6%. Human body, it consists of 1.5%, very less when compared to Earth's crust. So magnesium, it is 2.1% in Earth's crust, and in human body, it is 0.1%. Silicon is very high in Earth's crust, nearly 27.1%, but in case of human body, silicon is negligible. So this is the comparison of Earth's crust, which represents the non-living matter, and human body, which represents the living matter. So you can see a vast difference, especially in the hydrocarbons, carbon, oxygen. Uh, so you find their percentage is higher than that of the Earth's crust. Okay, so oxygen is nearly 65% of weight of human body. It consists of oxygen. Okay, so these are the comparisons that we have made for elements in non-living and living matter. Then we had discussed the topic of biomicromolecules, so which are found in the acid soluble pool. So the biomicromolecules includes the amino acids. So the acid soluble pool, we found that uh, it consists of the filtrate. It consists of amino acids, lipids, sugars, and nitrogen bases. So the molecular weight of micromolecules, or we can also call it as biomolecules, found in the acid soluble pool. So was around found in the acid soluble pool, it ranges from 18 to 800 Dalton. So the acid soluble pool represents the cytoplasmic composition. Okay, the molecular weight of biomicromolecules or micromolecules or biomolecules. So they found to be uh, found in the acid soluble pool, that is the filtrate, it ranges from 18 to 800 Daltons. The acid soluble pool represents the cytoplasmic composition. So that is one part that you have to remember. But lipids are found in the retentates, even though they have a very less molecular weight, they are found in the retentate because they are acid uh, insoluble. So they are acid insoluble compounds. So, but even they are lesser than 800 Daltons, and that is the reason we have included them under biomicromolecules. So biomicromolecules include amino acids, lipids, sugars, nitrogen bases. So now the amino acids, you know that they have an amino group and carboxylic acid group. So functional groups you can notice is the amino group as well as the carboxylic acid group, and carbon, it is tetra uh, hedral in structure. So you know that one of the uh, uh, carbon tetrahedral structure consists of amino group, another is the carboxylic acid group. So, and there is a variable group, R is the variable group. Okay, since the carbon has a single carbon has both amino and carboxylic acid group, we call this type of amino acids as, the carbon is called as alpha carbon, the amino acid is called as alpha amino acids. Okay, so this is what you have to remember about this amino acids. So the amino acids are compounds formed of an amino group, that is NH2, and a acid group, that is COOH, carboxylic acid group, that is COOH, H, and a variable group R. So amino acids are the compounds formed of an amino group, NH2 within brackets, and then carboxylic acid group, COOH, uh, and hydrogen, and a variable group R. So this variable group can be, it can be CH, uh, CH2, or it can be C2H5. So it can go on varying. The R part of it is variable group. So the NH2 and COOH are attached to the same carbon atom. So we call that carbon atom as alpha carbon. So these amino acids are, this sort of amino acids are called as alpha amino acids. So they are the substituted methane. So this alpha amino acids can also be called as substituted methanes, where one hydrogen compound is substituted by variable group, one hydrogen compound of this methane is substituted by amino group, and one hydrogen compound of this methane is substituted by the carboxylic acid group. So this sort of alpha carbons are also called as substituted methanes, where the hydrogen three hydrogen are substituted by amino acid, amino group, carboxylic acid group, and R variable chain. So that is the reason we call it as alpha carbon. Alpha amino acids can also be called as substituted methane. So the amino acids, the different examples are if the R has an, so you can remember this as uh, GAS, gas, glycine, alanine, serine. So this examples easily you can remember. They are all alpha amino acids. All the three are alpha amino acids. If the R group has H, we call it as glycine. If the R group, the variable group has the methyl group, so we call it as CH3. So we call it as alanine. This alpha amino acid is called as alanine. If the R, that is the variable group, consists of the methyl alcohol, that is CH2OH, so we call it as sterile. Okay, so based on the R group, so we have this three types of alpha amino acids, that is the glycine. I told you, you can remember by the mnemonics gas, glycine, alanine, and serine. So if the R group is substituted by H, we call it as glycine. If R group is, that is the variable group, has CH3 in alanine, so we call it as alanine. If the R group has CH2OH, then we call it as serine. So this alpha amino acid is called as serine if the R is having CH2OH. So just remember this structure of this micromolecule, especially the amino acids, where the R or the variable group is replaced by various types of uh, from hydrogen to uh, methyl group to, so the methyl alcohol group it can be substituted with. So the amino acids, there are 20 types of amino acids and they are used in protein synthesis. So amino acids, there are 20 types of amino acids and they are used in the protein synthesis or biological translation, which we also call it as. Amino acids are of three types: the acidic amino acids, the basic amino acids, and neutral amino acids based on their uh, tests or so the amino acids are of three types: acidic amino acids, basic amino acids, and neutral amino acids. So what you can notice in this acidic amino acids is, so the two groups it will be having this OH. Okay, so you are finding that there would be two carboxylic acid group and one amino group. In case of basic amino acids, there would be two amino groups and one carboxylic acid group. In neutral amino acids, they will be having one uh, amino group and one carboxylic acid groups. That is how, based on their type of the type of functional groups, number of functional groups, the amino acids can be acidic amino acid, basic amino acids, or neutral amino acids. Okay. So in the acidic amino acids, they would be having two carboxylic acid group and only one amino acid. Example is glutamic acid. So in case of the basic amino acids, they have two amino group and only one carboxylic group. Example is lysine. Okay, then in neutral amino acids they are going to have one amino group and one carboxylic acid group, as in case of valine. So valine is an example of neutral amino acid. Glutamic acid is the acidic amino acid. Lysine is the basic amino acids. And we have also studied three structures: gas, that is uh, the glycine, then there was the alanine and serine. So where the methyl group was replaced by different of them. So amino acid groups, nearly 20 types of amino acids are used in protein synthesis, and amino acids are of three types: acidic amino acids, basic amino acids, and neutral amino acid. Some of the amino acids, they are aromatic. Example, they'll be having this R, the variable might be having this aromatic compounds, like it might be a closed chain compounds. Example is tyrosine. Phenylalanine, they'll have a benzyl group. Tryptophan, So they might be having different aromatic compounds in the R group. So some of the amino acids are aromatic like tryptophan, phenylalanine, and tyrosine. They're all aromatic amino acids. So you should remember these examples. See, amino acids are also can also be classified as the following essential amino acids. See, the essential amino acids are not synthesized by the body and they should be obtained only through diet, the food that we intake. Example, lysine, leucine, isoleucine, tryptophan. So they are all the essential amino acids which we obtain through the food. So it has to be obtained through the diet that we consume, the diet that we have, okay, the food that we have, lysine, leucine, isoleucine, tryptophan. So the essential amino acids cannot be synthesized by our body, and these amino acids should be obtained only through the food diet. Okay, so that we have example lysine, leucine, isoleucine, tryptophan. They're all essential amino acids. Non-essential amino acids, they can be synthesized by the body. So the non-essential amino acids are, you can remember the gas that is glycine, alanine, serine, and arginine. So glycine, alanine, serine, and arginine, they are the examples of non-essential amino acids. Non-essential amino acids are synthesized by our body. We need not have to obtain it through our food diet. So that is the reason we call it as non-essential amino acids. Example, glycine, alanine, serine, and arginine, along with other amino acids. We call them as non-essential amino acids. In amino acids, the amino group and the carboxylic acid, they have ionizable nature. So structure of the amino acid changes in solution of different pH. So that you are aware about. So in amino acids, the amino group and COOH, that is the uh, carboxylic acid group, they have ionizable nature. So amino acid is also in ionizable nature. Carboxylic acid is also in the ionizable nature. So structure of the amino acid changes in solutions of different pH. If it is, so different pH solutions, the structure of amino acids change. If both amino ions and carboxylic, if both amino group and carboxylic acid group, they are ionized, it is called as bitter ion. Here you can notice both the amino group and the carboxylic acid group, they are ionized. So we call this sort of amino acid as where both amino and carboxylic acid groups are ionized. The same amino acid, we call it as bitter ion. So this type of amino acid where it has both amino group and carboxylic acid group are ionized, we call it as zwitterionic form. The next biomicromolecules that we will discuss about is lipids. See, lipids are water insoluble. They contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but the number of oxygen atoms is less. Okay, so the lipids are water insoluble. They contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but the number of oxygen atom is less. So you can notice that there is oils and fats. So the oils in room temperature, they are in the liquid form, whereas the fats are in the solid form in the room temperature. So the lipids are water insoluble. They contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, number of oxygen atoms will be less. So what are the types of lipids that we have? So simple lipids, so the compound lipids and derived lipids, as in case of cholesterol in the yolk of egg. So the simple lipids, compound lipids, and derived lipids are the types of lipids. So simple lipids, what are they formed of? So the coconut oil is an example of it. Uh, the palmic oil, palmitic acid, arachidonic acid. So they're all the examples of the simple lipids. So the simple lipids, these are formed of fatty acids and alcohol like glycerol. See, the simple lipids are having fatty acids and glycerol. So they are made up of fatty acids and glycerol. Fatty acids are lipids with a hydrocarbon chain, R group, and they end in COOH group. So RCOOH, that is how the fatty acids they contain of. So fatty acids are lipids with a hydrocarbon chain, that is the variable group R group, and ending in carboxylic acid group, that is RCOOH. So example, palmitic acid has 16 carbons. So CH3, CH2 14 times, and COOH. So you can notice that all the carbons totally they are 16 carbons, or C15H31 COOH. So you can also write it as C15H31 COOH, 15 carbon here and carboxylic acid 1 carbon. So totally they are 16 carbons in case of palmitic acid. Arachidonic acid has 20 carbons. So the fatty acids are lipids with a hydrocarbon chain ending in COOH. So this is the hydrocarbon chain that is nearly 16 carbon atoms you notice in palmitic acid, and in arachidonic acid it has 20 carbons are there in arachidonic acid, and they end up with this uh, carboxylic acid group. So the types of fatty acids, so in the simple lipids we had discussed about, uh, then in the simple lipids they would be having fatty acids and glycerols. So the next is we would also be discussing about the fatty acids. They type fatty acids, they can be two types: saturated fatty acids, where there is no double or triple bonds between carbon atoms. Unsaturated fatty acids, there is a double or triple bond between carbon atoms. Okay, so saturated fatty acids, they do not have any double or triple bonds between carbon atoms. Unsaturated fatty acids, they have one or more carbon having double or triple bonds. So we call it as unsaturated fatty acids. So saturated fatty acids, the example is palmitic acid, stearic acid. Unsaturated fatty acids, we have this oleic acid. So say stearic acid is 18 carbon is there. Oleic acid is uh, the saturated, unsaturated fatty acid. So they would be having nearly 18, uh, see, 18 of the carbon atoms, but hydrogen differs between stearic and oleic. Stearic, which is saturated, they have 35 hydrogen, whereas oleic acid, which is unsaturated, they have only 33 hydrogen. So the arachidonic acid, which has 20 carbon atoms, so they are also example for unsaturated fatty acids. So unsaturated fatty acids have double or triple bonds between the carbon atoms, one or more double or triple bonds between the carbon atoms, that we call it as unsaturated fatty acid. If they have only one double bond, so we call it as the oleic acid is such an example, mono unsaturated fatty acid. If they have two double bonds, so we would be calling it as di-unsaturated fatty acid. So oleic acid is an example of mono unsaturated fatty acid, since they have only one set of carbon atoms which have the double bond. Here you can notice that. Then the structure of glycerol, so it would be a simple structure: CH2OH, CHOH, CH2OH. That is the structure of glycerol. You can also call it as trihydroxy propane, C3. So trihydroxy propane. So C3H5OH thrice. That is what is the uh, so chemical nature of it. C3H5OH thrice. So we also call it as trihydroxy propane. So glycerol can also be called as trihydroxy propane. Very easy to remember: CH2OH, CHOH, CH2OH. So trihydroxy propane. Okay, glycerol. So now the fatty acids are esterified with glycerol through ester bond. So you should remember this ester bond. So they are esterified with glycerol through ester bond. So there is a loss of water, and there is a formation of an ester bond to form monoglycerides. If only one hydroxyl group is having this fatty acid, then we call it as monoglyceride. If one glycerol and they have two fatty acids, we call it as diglyceride. One glycerol having three fatty acids, we call it as triglycerides. So fatty acids are esterified with glycerol through the ester bond. So fatty acids and glycerol together, we call it as lipids, simple lipids. So fatty acids are esterified with glycerol. There is a loss of water here through the ester bond. There is a formation of ester bond. So accordingly, the fatty acids, they form based on the number of fatty acids. We have monoglyceride, diglyceride, and triglyceride. If glycerol has one fatty acid, one glycerol plus one fatty acid, we call it as monoglyceride. One glycerol plus two fatty acids, we call it as diglyceride. One glycerol plus three fatty acids, we call it as triglycerides. So this is the monoglyceride where only one fatty acid is found. One glycerol, one fatty acid. One glycerol, two fatty acids. So you can notice this two fatty acids. Okay. Triglycerides, one glycerol and three fatty acids. That is the triglycerides. So triglycerides here, R1, R2, and R3 are fatty acids. See this R1, R2, and R3 are fatty acids. You can notice here R1, R2, and R3. These are the fatty acids. So based on melting point, lipids or triglycerides are of two types. See the fats and oils, both of them are triglycerides. So based on their melting point, so the triglycerides are of two types, fats and oils. Fats have a higher melting point, oils have a lower melting point. So based on the melting points, the triglycerides are of two types, the fats and oils. So fats have higher melting point and oils, they have lower melting point. So even though both of them are triglycerides, their melting point, the difference of melting point, on that basis, we call them as fats or oils. The compound lipids. So we studied about simple lipids. So the second one is compound lipids, and third one we'll be studying about is the derived lipids. See, compound lipids, you can find it in the cell membrane. So we have already studied the fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane, where we say it as they have biphosphate phospholipid bilayer. So the fluid mosaic model where they have the proteins of integrated proteins and the surface proteins or peripheral proteins we find there. So compound lipids, these are the esters of fatty acids and alcohol. So they have fatty acids and glycerol with additional groups they have. Like they will be having fatty acids plus glycerol plus phosphate. So phospholipid is an example where they have fatty acid plus glycerol plus phosphate. They are found in cell membranes. Example, lecithin. So these phospholipids are found in cell membrane. So the compound lipids, they have additional groups. So they are the esters of fatty acids and uh, glycerol with additional groups. Like it can be a phosphate group, we call it as phospholipids, where they have fatty acids plus glycerol plus phosphate. So they are found in the cell membranes. Example is lecithin. Okay, so lecithin is where you find an additional uh, group, that is phosphate group is there. Okay, you can notice here the phosphate group. So lecithin is an example. So the phospholipids can be noticed in the cell membrane. So we have already studied this fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane, which was put forth by Singer and Nicholson. So you can notice this phospholipid bilayer. So the derived lipids, so these are the products of hydrolysis of simple lipids and compound lipids. So if they are hydrolyzed, either the simple lipids or compound lipids, they are going to form the derived lipids. So the derived lipids are the products of hydrolysis of simple lipids and compound lipids. Example, cholesterol. So the products of hydrolysis of either simple lipids or compound lipids, we call it as derived lipids. So there is hydrolysis. Okay. So loss of water will be taking place. And example for this derived lipids are cholesterol, which is found in the yolk of egg. Okay, so the structure of cholesterol, you can find that they have three benzyl group and one the pentyl group is there, and an open chain you can notice here. And one of the benzyl group has the OH. So three benzyl group with one pentyl group and an open chain. So OH is formed. So these are the derived lipids are products of hydrolysis of simple lipids and compound lipids. Example is cholesterol, which is found in the yolk of the egg. So the next biomicromolecule that we are going to discuss about is sugars or carbohydrates. So sugars are sweet and water-soluble carbohydrate. So they are formed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in the ratio of 1:2:1. So the sugars are sweet and water-soluble carbohydrates. They are formed in the ratio of they are formed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in the ratio of 1:2:1. Example, glucose C6H12O6, 1:2:1. So you can notice this glucose, fructose also has the same molecular formula, but the structural formula is different. So they are isomers, glucose and fructose are isomers. So the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, they are made up of in the ratio of 1:2:1. So ribose sugar is also a simple sugar carbohydrate. So simple carbohydrate. So they are again made up of C5H10O5. C5H10O5 is the structure of ribose sugar. So these are the examples for sugars or carbohydrates. Now, the next biomicromolecule that we have to study is the nitrogen bases. So, what are nitrogen bases? These are nitrogen containing cyclic compounds. So, these are nitrogen containing cyclic compounds. Nitrogen bases are nitrogen containing cyclic compounds found in nucleic acids. So, these nitrogen bases are located in the nucleic acids. They are classified as so the nitrogen bases are classified as purines and pyrimidines. Purines have a uh, benzyl group with a pentane group attached. So you find an exose and pentose so together. So you have a hexane and the pentose group together. So adenine, guanine, EAG is the example for it. So the pyrimidines cut, you can remember it as CUT. So the cytosine, thymine, and uracil. Uracil is found in RNA. Thymine is found only in DNA. So the nitrogen containing cyclic compounds are found in nucleic acids. Okay, and the nitrogen containing cyclic compounds are found in nucleic acids. They are classified as purines and pyrimidines. Purines consists of adenine and guanine. Adenine is denoted by A, guanine is denoted by G, and pyramidin, they have only a single uh, hexane structure. Okay, they have a single uh, exo structure, hexane structure. You can notice it. So cytosine, thymine, and uracil are examples for this pyrimidins. Okay,
Excuse me,
coming,
sir.
yeah.
What is the difference between the purine and
Hmm?
the difference between two nitrogen bases? What, sir?
See, the purines, you find uh, the benzyl group with pentyl group together. Purines, you find two chains. One is the hexane structure with a pentane. Okay, I can't call it as exose and pentose because they become sugars. So they will be having this amino, the nitrogen compounds are found here. Whereas in case of pyrimidines, they have a single structure, that is a hexane structure is there with nitrogen. Okay, nitrogen containing cyclic compounds. So here the cyclic compounds will be the hexane as well as pentane in case of purines, whereas pyrimidines have only the hexane structure. Okay, that is the differences between this. So single chain will be there, whereas there would be two chains, cyclic chains in case of purines. So they have a pyrimidines have a single chain. Okay, so that is the major difference between them. So cytosine, thymine, and uracil are examples of this pyrimidines.
Yes,
So
sir.
for more detailed study of that, you have to take biochemistry at degree level. So where you will be trying to understand the chemistry part of it, of each and every structure. Now, as of now, you just remember nitrogen bases are of two types, purines and pyrimidines. Purines have two cyclic compounds together, two cyclic containing nitrogen containing two cyclic compounds are noticed in purine, whereas in pyrimidines there is only uh, one nitrogen containing cyclic compound. Okay, so pyrimidines cut is an example: cytosine, uracil, and thymine. Uracil is only found in RNA, thymine is found only in DNA. Then nitrogen bases, they with sugar they are going to form nucleoside. So what are nucleosides? These are the compounds formed by linking of a nitrogen base with a sugar. We call it as nucleoside. So nitrogen base plus sugar is nucleoside. So adenine plus sugar, we call it as adenosine. Guanine plus sugar, we call it as guanosine. So whenever I say adenosine, you should remember that I'm talking about a nucleoside. So guanosine, if I say it is, I'm talking about a nucleoside. If I just say guanine, so I'm talking about the nitrogen base. If I say it as guanilic acid, then I'm talking about the nucleotide. So you should be able to differentiate what we are talking about based on their spellings and the terms that we use. Okay, adenine is a nitrogenous base. Adenosine is a nucleoside. Adeno, adenilic acid or adenosine monophosphate, if I say it is nucleotide. AMP or adenilic acid is nucleotide, which we'll be studying under the macromolecules. Okay, so the adenosine, guanosine, cytidine, thymidine, uridine. So these are all examples for nucleoside. So nucleoside is made up of nitrogenous base, which is attached with a sugar. So nitrogenous base with a sugar, we call it as the nucleoside. So the sugar which is attached with adenine. Okay, you can notice that. So here you have this adenosine. So and here it is uridine. So uracil is attached to the sugar. So the nitrogenous base is attached to the sugar. So that we call it as nucleoside. So adenosine, guanosine, cytidine, thymidine, and uridine, they are all the examples for nucleoside. The nucleotides, so these are the compounds formed by linking of a nucleoside with a phosphate group. So nitrogenous base plus sugar plus phosphate, we call it as nucleotide. So nucleoside, they had just the nitrogenous base and sugar. Nucleotide, they are formed by linking of nucleoside. So nucleoside with a phosphate group. So, or you can also say it as nitrogenous base plus sugar plus phosphate, or you can just say it as nucleoside plus phosphate. So the definition varies. So you can even define it as nucleoside plus phosphate, or you can say it as nitrogenous base plus sugar plus phosphate. That is the definition of a nucleotide. So adenine plus sugar plus phosphate, adenilic acid, or you can also call it as AMP. See, there is an adenine group on this sugar. They also have this phosphate group. So adenine group and phosphate group. So we call it as adenilic acid, or you can also call it as mono adenosine monophosphate. So 5 adenosine monophosphate. The fifth carbon atom is having this phosphate group. So we can also call it as 5-AMP. So adenosine monophosphate, or we can call it as adenilic acid. They have not used that adenosine monophosphate. You can also call it as adenosine monophosphate. Guanine plus sugar plus phosphate is guanilic acid or GMP, that is guanosine monophosphate. Cytosine plus sugar plus phosphate is cytidilic acid or CMP, uh, cytosine monophosphate, cytidine monophosphate. So thymine plus sugar plus phosphate, thymidilic acid or TMP, thymidine monophosphate. Uracil plus sugar plus phosphate, uridylic acid or uridine monophosphate, UMP. Okay, so these are the various examples for the nucleotide. Thymidilic acid, is seen only in case of DNA, and uridynic acid is seen only in case of RNA. The nucleotides are heterocyclic compounds. So nucleic acids, DNA and RNA are made up of nucleotides. So nucleotides are heterocyclic compounds. So they are not made up of single type. They are not homocyclic. They are heterocyclic compounds. Nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, they are made up of nucleotides. Okay, the DNA and RNA, they are made up of nucleotides. So the next topic that we have for study is the biomacromolecules. So the example for biomacromolecules, so they are molecules, biomolecules having molecular weight greater than 1000 Daltons. They include proteins, polysaccharides, and nucleic acid. So whereas in micromolecules, we studied about the amino acids, simple sugars, then we studied about nitrogen bases, then lipids we studied under micromolecules. Biomacromolecules, we are going to study about proteins, polysaccharides, and nucleic acids. So biomacromolecules are molecules having molecular weight greater than 1000 Dalton. So they include these, and they are acid insoluble components. Okay, their molecular weight is 10,000 Daltons and above. So their molecular weight of these biomacromolecules are 10,000 Daltons and above. The acid insoluble fraction contains these macromolecules. It includes macromolecules from cytoplasm and organelles. Okay, so the acid insoluble fraction, they include macromolecules from cytoplasm and organelles, that is the cell organelles. So structure of the cell membrane, the lipid is not strictly a macromolecule as its molecular weight does not exceed 800 Dalton, but it comes under acid insoluble fraction. I've already discussed about that because many lipids are arranged into structures like cell membranes. So when a tissue is grinded, cell membranes are broken and they form water insoluble vesicles. Because they have this lipids, they form in water insoluble vesicles. They cannot be filtered along acid soluble fraction. So they are acid insoluble fraction. That is the reason, even though the lipids are micromolecules, they have their molecular weight less than 800. Since they are acid insoluble, they are found along with the retentate. But lipids, we are studying it under biomicromolecules. So the biomicromolecules average composition of cells. What are the components that are in a cell? So water, nearly 70 to 90% of the cell is composed of or made up of water. So proteins are nearly 10 to 15%. Carbohydrates in a cell is nearly 3%. Nucleic acids are 5 to 7%, and ions are 1%. So the average composition of cells, the water will be 70 to 90% of a cell is made up of water. Proteins are 10 to 15%. Carbohydrates are very less, 3% of the cell might be composed of carbon. Nucleic acids are 5 to 7%. Ions are 1%. So that is what you can notice in case of these uh, biomacromolecules. The first biomacromolecules that we'll be studying about is proteins. See, the proteins are heteropolymer. They are not homopolymer. They are heteropolymer. That is, they are made up of more than one type of amino acid. That is the reason we use the term proteins are heteropolymer of amino acids. They are polypeptides. That is, linear chain of amino acids are linked by this peptide bonds. So how is the peptide bond formed? Peptide bond is formed when COOH group of one amino acid reacts with amino group of next amino acid. They release a molecule of water, that is dehydration takes place, and there is this peptide bond formed between CONH. This is the peptide bond that is formed. So the proteins are heteropolymer of amino acids. So proteins are polypeptides, that is, they are linear chain of amino acid which are linked by peptide bonds. So proteins are polypeptides which are linear chain of amino acids linked by peptide bonds. How are the peptide bonds formed? So the peptide bond is formed when carboxylic group of one amino acid reacts with amino group of another amino acid by releasing a molecule of water by dehydration. They form this peptide bond. So that is how the amino group and carboxylic acid, they react uh, with dehydration of water to form a peptide bond. The functions of proteins. Proteins are required for growth and tissue repair. Proteins, they transport nutrients across cell membranes. Example, GLUT4, they enable glucose transport into cells. Okay, they act as, proteins act as intercellular ground substance. Example, collagen. So in between, within the cell, intercellular ground substance is formed by this proteins, that is example collagen. Proteins acts as antibodies to fight infectious organisms. Proteins also acts as receptors, that is receptors of smell, taste, hormones. So proteins, some of the hormones are proteinaceous, example insulin. So most of the enzymes are made up of protein, example trypsin. Most of the pigments are also made up of protein like hemoglobin, etc. So the proteins are noticed in some of the hormones like insulin, some of the enzymes like trypsin, some of the pigments like hemoglobin. You can notice this protein. So these are all the functions of proteins. Proteins are present in hormones, enzymes, pigments. Okay, proteins acts as receptors of smell, taste, and hormones, receptors for hormones. So the proteins, most abundant protein in animal world is collagen. Most abundant protein in the entire biosphere is rubisco. So ribulose biphosphate carboxylase oxygenase enzyme. So this is going to initiate the carbon dioxide fixation is brought about by this rubisco enzyme. Again, in plant physiology, we'll be discussing about that in C3 cycle. So rubisco enzyme. So you can remember it as rubisco enzyme. Okay, so ribulose biphosphate carboxylase oxygenase enzyme it is. So the most abundant protein in animal world is collagen. The most abundant protein in entire biosphere is rubisco. So remember this point. So the biomacromolecules proteins, we are going to study about the structural level of proteins. So they have four structural levels: primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, and quaternary structure. So they have a primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, and quaternary structure. So these were the things that we discussed in the structural level of proteins. So the primary structure, it describes the sequence of amino acids, that is positional information of an amino acid is obtained through the primary structure. So the left end, the first amino acid in the left end, so the N terminal amino acid, we call it as the right end, the last amino acid, we call it as the C terminal. So first amino acid, the left end, we call it as the first amino acid or N terminal amino acid, and the right end, we call it as the last amino acid, which has the C terminal. It is also called a C terminal amino acid. So the positional information in a protein is described by this primary structure. This primary structure is a sequence of amino acids, that is positional information in a protein. So the positional information of an amino acid in a protein can be described in a primary structure. So you can notice here the positional information. So here they have this uh, lavender colored, green colored, and blue colored different types of proteins. Their positional information can be obtained uh, in the primary structure. It describes the sequence of amino acids. So the first amino acid, left hand is the first amino acid, the right hand is the last amino acid. So first amino acid, we call it as N-terminal amino acid. Last amino acid, we call it as C-terminal amino acid. The secondary structure here, there are one or more polypeptide chains are folded in the form of helix. So one or more polypeptide chains, they are folded in the form of helix. So that is what you notice in secondary structure. One or more polypeptide chains, they are folded in the form of helix. It has only right-handed helices. So this has only right-handed helices. Example for secondary structure is keratin, fibroin or silk fiber is an example for this secondary structure, keratin and fibroin. So they are helical, they are folded in the form of a helix. One or more polypeptide chains are folded in the form of helix. It has only right-handed helices. Examples keratin and fibroin. Fibroin is a component, chemical component of silk fiber. So the typical strand of hair, keratin, you can notice here. So they are the secondary structure. You can notice the helical structure. You can notice. So fibroin, silk protein. So anti-parallel beta sheet rich in alanine and glycine. So the small side chains allow close packing. So the fibroin or silk protein, they have this alanine side chain and the glycine side chain. So tertiary structures here, they are helical polypeptide chain. In tertiary structure, you notice that the helical polypeptide chain is folded, further folded like a woolen ball. So they are folded like a woolen ball and it gives a three-dimensional view. So in tertiary structure, the helical polypeptide chain further folds to form a woolen ball-like structure, hollow woolen ball-like structure. It gives three-dimensional view. Tertiary structure is necessary for many biological activities of proteins. Examples for this tertiary structure are myoglobin and enzymes are tertiary structures. So the polypeptides, helical polypeptide chain is further folded to form a hollow woolen ball-like structure. It gives a three-dimensional view. Tertiary structure is necessary for many biological activities of protein. Example is enzymes, myoglobin, they're all examples for tertiary structure. So the quaternary structure, what you can notice is more than one polypeptide chain, they form tertiary structure, and each more than one polypeptide chain, they form tertiary structures, and each tertiary structure, they function as subunits of protein. So quaternary, as the name indicates, four. So more than one polypeptide chain form tertiary structures, and each chain functions as subunits of protein. So example, hemoglobin. Hemoglobin has four subunits, two alpha subunits and two beta subunits. So they have heme group. So hemoglobin is an example for quaternary structure. So more than one helical polypeptide chains, more than one polypeptide chains form a tertiary structure, and each chain uh, functions as a subunit of protein. So hemoglobin, it has four subunits, two alpha subunits and two beta subunits. Hemoglobin is an example for quaternary structure. So proteins at a glance, you have this primary structure, secondary structure where they are folded to form helical structures. So positional analysis you can notice in primary structures, the positional analysis of the amino acids. Secondary structure, they are a single polypeptide chain or more than one polypeptide chain. They are folded to form helical structure. Okay, so they are further folded. The helical polypeptides are further folded to form hollow woolen ball-like structure in case of tertiary structures. Quaternary, they have more than one tertiary structures which form uh, unit that they have more than one quaternary structures. So a hemoglobin is an example for quaternary structure where they have two alphas structural units and as well as two beta structural units. So more than one tertiary structures are noticed in case of quaternary structure. So these are things that you have to remember regarding the structural levels of protein. Then polysaccharides, the next carbohydrate part of it. So these are polymers of sugars, monosaccharides. So polymers of sugars. Sugars are generally monosaccharide. Examples are starch. It is a homopolymer of glucose. Starch is a homopolymer of glucose. Cellulose is homopolymer of glucose. The glycogen, they are homopolymer of glucose. Inulin, homopolymer of fructose. But their arrangement, see in case of starch, the homopolymer of glucose is in a helical structure. It is almost like loop-like structures you can notice. In case of cellulose, they are like uh, uh, the ladder-like structure you notice. Homopolymer glycogen, you notice that they are branched. So homopolymer of fructose, you can notice in inulin. These are the polysaccharides, examples of it. They are polymers of sugars or monosaccharides. See, polysaccharides are there are complex polysaccharides which forms amino sugars like polysaccharides like glucose and amine. So they have this amino group, N-acetyl glucose galactose amine. They have this acetyl group. So the amino sugars are also there, like they form complex polysaccharides which are formed of amino sugars. They have amino group. Examples are glucosamine, N-acetyl galactosamine. Chitin is the homopolymer of N-acetyl glucosamine. So chitin is the homopolymer of N-acetyl glucosamine. It is seen in the exoskeleton of fungi, arthropods, and fungal cell wall. Chitin. So remember that it is an uh, homopolymer of N-acetyl glucosamine. So the glycosidic bonds in polysaccharides, it is a bond formed when individual monosaccharides are linked between two carbon atoms by dehydration. So when individual atoms of uh, monosaccharides are linked between two carbon atoms, individual monosaccharides are linked by two carbon atoms when the between two carbon atoms by dehydration, we call it as the glycosidic bond. So diagrammatic representation of a portion of glycogen, how they are branched with this homopolymer of glucose. You can notice that. So you should be able to recognize this diagram as a portion of glycogen, enlarged portion of glycogen. So glycogen is a reserve food material of animal cell. Starch is the reserve food material of plant cell. So starch forms helical secondary structure. It can hold L2 molecules in the helical portion, giving a blue color. Cellulose has no complex helices and therefore they cannot hold L2. So starch forms helical secondary structure. So because it can hold L2 molecules in the helical portion, and that is why they give blue color. Cellulose has no complex helices and therefore they cannot hold L2. Okay, so starch reacts with iodine, so and they change their color to blue color. Okay, that does not happen in other compounds. One of the identifying test of starch is iodine test, wherein we are going to obtain this blue color whenever starch is added with iodine. So then we discussed about the nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. Nucleic acids are, I think we'll discuss this nucleic acids and the enzyme summary in the next class. Okay. So have you understood about the summary of macromolecules and micromolecules? In tomorrow's class, I'll be discussing the summary of nucleic acids and enzymes. See, all the structural formula are not required. They never ask you to write the structural formula of adenine or other things. But biology part of it, you should understand. Okay. And simple definition of it is required. But in NEET and other CET examination, they might give you the structure and I ask you to identify it. So you should be aware about the structure so that you can identify them in the NEET or CET oriented uh,